Well, Merry Christmas from Congress to the American people. That's a switch, isn't it? A massive bill that includes $900 billion in COVID relief is expected to pass today. Yes, it includes a $600 stimulus check for millions of Americans. With lockdowns devastating our economy, is it too little or too late? Dale Hurd.
Months of failed negotiations, Congress finally has a deal on a COVID-19 stimulus package. And yes, it includes another check for many Americans.
We can finally report what our nation has needed to hear for a very long time. More help is on the way.
The $900 billion package is expected to include $300 billion for small businesses, $300 in weekly federal unemployment benefits, and a $600 stimulus check to millions of Americans, half of what the government sent back in the spring. The earliest people could see those checks is January.
After a long and arduous year, after a year full of bad news, finally we have some good news to deliver to the American people.
In a poll by the website Alignable, 85% of small business owners said additional funding is very important for the survival of their businesses for the next 6 months, and that half of minority-owned businesses are not able to pay their December rent. Single mom Renee DiCarlo, forced to close her business, says any help is welcome.
Every dollar matters to me. The more they give me, the more ability I'll have to get my life back in order, a little bit at a time, because right now there isn't enough to support myself or my kids.
But for many out-of-work Americans, the relief package is too little, too late.
$600 is nothing. It's like a slap in our face.
Lisa Mistretta, a hospice nurse, suffers from health conditions that make her too high risk to work.
You know, I'm behind about $6,000 in bills. You know, it's not our fault that we can't work.
Today, a new COVID vaccine from Moderna joins Pfizer's in the nation's arsenal against the pandemic. But a poll shows half of Americans either won't take it or aren't sure. After reports of severe allergic reactions, the CDC now says that anyone who reacts to the vaccine should not get the second shot. And governments around the world are banning travelers from the United Kingdom after officials reported a new, more contagious variant of COVID-19 has emerged. The UK is now under lockdown, with some accusing the government of effectively canceling Christmas. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to go on record. I gave you the other day a full report about the devastating impact of these lockdowns. It is a bureaucratic nightmare that has no basis in science whatsoever. To shut down restaurants, to shut down hotels, to shut down various types of travel, it is just insanity. I know the hospitals are full, that there are many people that have COVID, but what they don't show you is that restaurants are the big spreaders. They're not. There are other places, but what's happening by locking all these businesses down, we are destroying people's lives. And it isn't based on science, it's based on bureaucratic ability to control the lives of people. And when it's all over, you're going to have a wreck of business after business after business, people unemployed, and it's making it much, much worse, whatever's going on. It's wrong. What they should do is put definitely a quarantine around the elderly, people who have these pre-existing conditions, people who are ill for some, whatever they have, metabolic syndrome or whatever it is. But beyond that, the young people should be allowed to go back to school. They should be allowed to play sports. And as far as I'm concerned, open stadiums, if you wear a mask or something, there's no reason they can't go out and watch football, baseball, and all the rest of it. But we're not basing all this on science, and we are hurting tens of millions of people. And I was so sad when I saw California tried to open, and then lo and behold, a federal judge who had given an order to allow opening, he said, you can have strip clubs because strip clubs don't cause COVID. Well, that's nice. And then the next thing you know, every restaurant would have a dancer. It was then the appeals court said that's tough luck. We shut the whole state down. Listen, millions of people are suffering, and it's the wrong science. Well, in other news, who's behind the months-long cyber attack on our government? Was it Russia or was it China? And senators are calling for a counterattack. George Thomas has more.
That's right, Pat. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Senator Marco Rubio, acting chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, say Russia is clearly behind the attack that breached several government agencies, including the State Department and the Departments of Treasury, Energy, and Homeland Security. Senator Mitt Romney said the attack shows the Russians have the capacity to cripple vital infrastructure, including electricity, communications, even water.
This is the same sort of thing one can do in a wartime setting, and so it's extraordinarily dangerous, and it's an outrageous affront on our sovereignty, and one that's going to have to be met with a very strong response, not just rhetorical, important as that is, but also with the cyber response of like magnitude or greater.
By the way, Senator Rubio also called for a strong response. In a tweet, President Trump disputed the scope of the attack and suggested that China actually may be responsible. Pat, no doubt this was a devastating attack.
It's horrible. You know, the thing that I have been talking about so long, it would cost so little to harden our infrastructure. And yet, if the power grid is knocked out, and it could be very easily by some type of cyber attack, suddenly you don't have any power, and then we would be in desperate condition. And it looks like, by the way, one of the scientists is looking at the sun, and he said it seems we're going to have a heightened sunspot activity, and solar flares may be coming out at the United States, which in turn could knock out our power grid. So it is so important that we harden the power grid. We waste money on everything, and yet this crucial thing is so inexpensive, but it is absolutely crucial to be done, and yet I don't think anybody is listening. George?
Pat, in his fight to overturn the election, the president is taking another shot at the Supreme Court. Sunday, his campaign filed suit asking the justices to overturn 3 decisions by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Those rulings eased the state's rules on signature verification, election day observation, and mail-in ballots. A favorable ruling by the High Court could invalidate more than 2 million mail-in ballots. So far, though, the Supreme Court has turned away the campaign's challenges. Pat?
You know, I really don't think, ladies and gentlemen, that argument before the court's going to prevail. I had prayed and hoped that there might be some better solution, but I don't think I think it's all over. I think the Electoral College has spoken. I think the Biden corruption has not totally been brought to fruition, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the Electoral College. And I don't think the Supreme Court is going to move in to do anything. And I think we're going to see a President Biden, and I also think we'll be seeing a President Kamala Harris not too long after the inauguration of President Biden. So just keep your eyes on the future. I'm not saying I have anything particularly from the Lord. That's just my own opinion. But I think that Biden is not capable of handling the stuff that's going to be thrown at him. But our country is now going to be facing tremendous challenges. China may well try to invade Taiwan. They're talking about it. In the South China Sea, there is tremendous opportunity for the Chinese to exercise sovereignty and to challenge us. The Iranians want to challenge us at the Straits of Hormuz and these other waterways. You look around the globe, and the Turks are talking about an invasion of Israel. And it goes on and on and on. What are we going to do in this interregnum when these dictators begin to challenge us? It's going to be happening. And I think, I don't know that the Biden people at this present time are able to handle the challenge. It's going to be too much. And by the way, there's something that I totally disagree with it, but I'll let George give you this next story about President Trump.
That's right, Pat. President Trump is openly talking about running for president in 2024 if he loses this fight in the courts. The plan could complicate, as you can imagine, the lives of other Republicans with their eyes on the White House. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener shows us why it is becoming a conversation on both sides of the aisle.
Many experts agree Donald Trump is unique in the strength he would have as a one-term president. The question, will he use it to pursue the Oval Office again should efforts to claim the 2020 election fall short?
We will still win it. We will still win it.
Rallying support for two critical Georgia Senate races, President Trump insists his campaign can still prevail.
We've never lost an election.
Despite reassurances about ultimate victory, the president already hinting he's ready to run again. From an aggressive fundraising effort to remarks at a White House Christmas party.
He controls the loyalty of a very significant portion of the Republican electorate, particularly the Republican electorate that votes in primaries. And he obviously has the ability to finance a race.
And while the idea may delight the base for the moment, there's concern it will freeze the GOP field of potentially strong up-and-comers.
He sucks all of the oxygen out of the room for every other single candidate who was thinking about running. For example, Mike Pence, obviously, Nikki Haley, Tom Cotton was thinking about getting in, Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, and there's a whole long list.
Instead of the usual activities like planning fundraisers, building support, and courting early voting states, GOP hopefuls would have little choice but to wait and watch for fear of turning away Trump's large and loyal base. Republican strategist Tom Rath says, though, there is an appetite within the party for new blood.
I think there's built-up energy in the Republican Party to move generationally, but not just generationally, but also ideologically.
Still, under the U.S. Constitution, President Trump has the right to pursue the Oval Office again for a second term if he's sent packing after the first.
The degree to which they are intimidated and frightened by this president is unbelievable.
How much of the spotlight and influence a former President Trump can keep remains to be seen.
I think Democrats are going to see Donald Trump potentially running in 2024 as a sideshow. I really do. I mean, I think they're not going to pay much attention to it until they have to. And that could be in 2024.
And as Biden prepares to take the helm next month, Democrats insist they are too disciplined to be distracted.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, you know, they're walking into a really challenging situation with the economy, with this pandemic. I think they've got so much on their plate. The last thing that they're going to really be worrying about is what Trump is tweeting from, Mar-a-Lago.
There's talk Mr. Trump will try to steal some of Biden's Inauguration Day thunder by skipping the swearing in and announcing his bid on January 20th. Meanwhile, President Trump wouldn't be the first defeated president to win a second non-consecutive term. That honor belongs to the 22nd and 24th president of the United States, Grover Cleveland. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Thank you, Tara. Pat, what do you think? Should Mr. Trump run again in 2024?
David Brody, I think it's a sideshow. I think it would be a mistake. My money would be on Nikki Haley. I think she'd make a tremendous candidate for the Republican Party. But with all his talent and the ability to raise money and draw large crowds, the president still lives in an alternate reality. He really does. People say, well, he lies about this, that, and the other. But no, he isn't lying. To him, that's the truth. He had the biggest crowd on Inauguration Day. He had more people than ever. He was the most popular people. He saved NBC, but with The Apprentice, you go down the line of things that really aren't true, and people kept pointing to them. But because they loved him so much, and he was so strong for the evangelicals were with him all the way. But there was something about him that was good, that God placed him in that office for the time. He's done a marvelous job for the economy. But at the same time, he is very erratic, and he's fired people, and he's fought people, and he's insulted people, and it keeps going down the line. So it's a mixed bag, and I think it would be well to say, you've had your day, and it's time to move on. But at the same time, I am very, very concerned about the trends towards socialism, and it would be terrible to see this country go into some type of socialist decline. And don't think that Bernie Sanders, who is a socialist, and people like that, aren't going to be very dominant in the Democrat Party. And if we have a socialist that suddenly takes away many of the things that Trump has put in, if they raise taxes, they start to confiscate money, they don't know what to do with the debt, they start to pay all the tuition for people at big universities, et cetera, et cetera. This stuff will bankrupt America, and America can't stand for it. So what do? If they start confiscating money? I mean, it goes down the line. When you look at what happened in the socialist countries, they first did everything they could, then they began to take dominance. And we don't want that in America. We don't want it in America. So if it was a time to pray, this is the time to pray. But I certainly don't think we need a sideshow for 2024. I think right now, we better do some praying about those Georgia elections because they are crucial. George?
Pat, if you haven't noticed, today is the first day of winter, and forecasters are predicting a strong winter storm this week. Heavy rain hitting the west coast today, likely turning to snow across the Central Plains and Midwest on Wednesday. By Thursday, the East Coast will be seeing heavy rain and thunderstorms, and in the Northeast, snow on Christmas Day. Well, a rare cosmic event lights up the night sky tonight. While some are calling it the Christmas star, experts say that's not quite the case. CBN reporter Wendy Griffith explains.
December 21st is the winter solstice, the darkest night of the year. And in 2020, Saturn and Jupiter, the two largest planets in our solar system, will nearly kiss. The closest the two planets have aligned in 800 years. The phenomenon has many talking and even singing about it.
And the Christmas star appears, first time in 800 years. You'll see it next Monday night. Yeah, that's the bright side.
No, seriously, Jupiter and Saturn are going to align by less than 1/10 of a degree in the night sky on December 21st. Last time it happened was March 4th, 1226. It's the Christmas star.
Star of Bethlehem expert Rick Larson says while that's true, you'd have to go all the way back to the Middle Ages to see a closer convergence. It's not going to resemble the Christmas star that led the wise men to the baby Jesus.
What's happening on December 21, simply as beautiful as it is not the Star of Bethlehem. The Star of Bethlehem is a conjunction of Jupiter and Venus. The conjunction, which just means a coming together visually, was so close that they basically stacked like a figure 8. And so they didn't obscure one another's brightness. And the result was the brightest star anyone alive had ever seen.
The Bible speaks of the star the wise men saw in Matthew chapter 2. And lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Many Christians believe the Star of Bethlehem was a miraculous sign to mark the birth of Jesus. And while the 2020 star may not be as bright, the fact that such a rare cosmic event is happening so close to Christmas in a year like 2020 is giving many hope that the God of miracles is still shining his light from above. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Incidentally, the best time to see this event for those in the Northern Hemisphere will be about 45 minutes after sunset this evening. And as Wendy said, the last time this happened was 800 years ago. So if you don't want to miss it, because this time they say that this phenomenon could occur in 2080. Pat.
Thanks, George. I'll make a point to be there to watch it, okay?
I think you'll be joined by a lot of people.
Not
on your patio, but
28.
on theirs.
You know, that whole thing, but it happened after the birth of Jesus. The wise men came several years later. I mean, the whole thing was converged together. It makes a wonderful story, you know. But anyhow, there were wise men from the east, you know, anyhow. It's interesting, but Jupiter and Venus coming together, 800 years. All right.